Live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you for joining us. We are live streaming here out of the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom, as we do every weekday, starting around 1 p.m. and going throughout the afternoon. We are on our YouTube channel. We're at kptv.com under the Fox 12 Now tab, and we're on the Fox 12 Oregon apps. Lots of places to find the show, joining the conversation, and of course, watch these segments afterward. Something we are going to be doing here leading up to November 5th is talking to candidates who are in races that are going to be decided on that night. One of those being Multnomah County Commissioner number 2 for District 2. And we have both candidates who are joining us. We're going to just ask some very general questions to get their opinions, their thoughts on how they're going to tackle some of those issues that voters are most concerned with. We've got, joining us right now, Sam Adams. Here, as you can see right here, we've got Shannon Singleton joining us. And first off, just thank you to both of you for being amenable to this, to join us, to talk about this and go through some of these different things that people are concerned with, and just to hear, once again, your opinions on that, how you want to tackle these issues, and what you think are some of the important ways that we can address some of them. And the first one we're going to talk about is homelessness, something that nationally is certainly on a lot of people's minds, definitely here in Oregon, and particularly in Portland and Multnomah County, where that is it's a concern for a lot of people, and something that the city and the county have been battling for a while to try to figure out how to accommodate this, how to tackle this issue. And so, Shannon, we'll start off with you, and just a general question of that is, how would you tackle homelessness in Multnomah County District 2 should you be elected?
Thank you, Greg. So a couple of things I really want to start with is, I'm invested in doing what works. And what we know works is we have some different types of shelter. We also know from recent studies out of Portland State University that alternative shelter sites and hotel and motel shelters are doing a better job of placing people into housing than some of our congregate sites. So we should really be looking at what are we putting our funding towards and what are the outcomes that we're seeking when it comes to our shelter models. And be willing to, if we have to, change direction on what those look like and end contracts or change the type of model that a shelter is operating. But we also know that rent assistance works. And so we absolutely must continue to do the rent assistance that we provide to people, whether that's short-term or long-term rent assistance, to help people not only get inside, but to stay inside. And then additionally, what we don't talk often about in homelessness is our prevention work, which includes often some support services as well as potentially financial assistance to prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place. And so looking at those three different spaces and ensuring that we continue to do what works well, but stop putting our money into the things that don't perform well, and really take a look at where there's those gaps in services. Some of those gaps include our mental health providers and getting folks mobile, street outreach, mental health providers out in the community, as well as our jail system has become a revolving door for folks cycling in and out of homelessness, and we have to close those gaps as well.
All right, Shannon, thank you very much. And Sam, same question to you. How would you go about tackling the homelessness issues that are happening there in Multnomah County?
So I would dig into the $700 million that currently is being budgeted between the city of Portland, Multnomah County, and Home Forward towards issues of direct homeless services, substance abuse disorder, mental illness, and affordable housing. And setting the issue of affordable housing aside for a minute, digging into that, $700 million, and probably now beyond that, the city has come out with an estimate of over $150 million that they're spending, total package of $700 million. I would dig into that and look for the wastes and the unlinked and the gaps, and find the resources for those missing services that Shannon talks about. It isn't, with the exception of affordable housing, it isn't a question of money right now. It's a question of how it's being spent, and how it's being spent is in a scattershot way with scant accountability. So the first thing I would do is hire or ask the board and the chair to hire a homelessness czar. Second thing is to put together a unified budget for that $700 million. The next thing is to put together not multiple systems that an individual trying to get off the streets has to apply to, sometimes upwards of 4 different times. Have one system of care that people sign up for and tracks them through the process to make sure that they're getting the care that they need. And fourth, to have an annual report card that's done by an outside independent organization on how the collective efforts of that unified budget, led by one person, not dozens of people, is working.
All right, Sam, thank you very much. So clarifying your position on that and how you would handle that. So you mentioned the 700 million. Something else that you both brought up there was affordable housing, which is another big thing that's on the minds of voters. And Shannon, going to you, how would you tackle that issue? How would you look at it for affordable housing, and how would you mentioned short-term assistance, long-term assistance. What would be your overall plan to make housing more affordable for voters in Multnomah County?
So a couple of things have happened recently. The Portland Housing Bureau has put money out the door to bring housing into the affordable housing portfolio. So market rate apartments that we could purchase and actually then rent back out at affordable prices. This is something I think we lagged a little bit on doing, and I would like to see additional investment into that sort of acquisition and or preservation, ensuring we keep existing affordable housing in that affordable housing portfolio and keep rents affordable for our families, our veterans, and our seniors. Additionally, I think it's important that we support the TIF district conversations going on. The Portland Housing Bureau has expended the Portland Housing Bond. The Metro Housing Bond for Development is also allocated. So these are going to be the additional resources that we have to develop new affordable housing. So we need that tool at our disposal as well. And then frankly, we have a governor who is a housing advocate. And I think we need to be working with the state of Oregon to ensure that we're getting equitable distribution of resources into Multnomah County to ensure that we have the ability to continue to develop housing that is affordable to our families. And I want to be really clear, this includes our workforce. We have folks who are working in all sorts of jobs in these communities, teachers, social workers, who can't afford to live here in the community that they work. And we absolutely must ensure that we're addressing the housing needs, not just at the lowest income levels, but across that spectrum.
All right, thank you, Shannon. And Sam, same question to you. How would you address that, the issue of affordable housing in Multnomah County?
Well, this is another emergency. We've got the houseless emergency, and we have the housing production emergency as well. And its work is headed up by the city. Homelessness needs to be headed up by the county. And I would work with the city. When I was back last at City Hall, I was part of the team that moved forward what are now coming back to City Council for votes, these new tax increment financing districts that are focused on affordable housing and workforce and other things. So again, how to go about solving these problems is what's critical right now in my mind. We know what the issues are. I would also put together in addition to having a housing production czar, we only have according to the Oregonian, we only have 500 permits for housing in the pipeline right now. And in order to meet our deficit, because we haven't been building enough housing of 6,800 units per year, we're nowhere close to what we should be doing. And so this is another emergency, requires an emergency response. Emergency responses are one of the secret powers of local governments, and it needs to be applied to both homelessness and housing production. I would also support, and I think Shannon supports as well, that some of the money for the Metro SHS funding that was unanticipated should go to help underwrite and help subsidize deeply affordable housing, which is our biggest need right now.
All right, Sam, thank you for that. And, something that you both touched on there, too, is just cost of living, I think is really associated with this, too, when it comes down to affordable housing. Obviously, there needs to be other things associated with that when it comes into those costs. So for cost of living specifically, Sam, we'll go to you to start with this one to continue on there. How is it that you would tackle that particular issue?
Well, again, I'm going to be really tangible and focused. And one of the best things we can do right now, and I would bring a resolution, if I'm elected, I'll bring a resolution to the county board to have the county go on record and ask the city to do the same thing, is oppose the merger between Kroger, which is the Fred Meyer brand of grocery stores, as we know, and the proposed merger between the Safeway Albertsons, which is another company that has the two different grocery stores, oppose that because right now in North and Northeast Portland, there are at least 4, maybe 5 sets of stores where the merger would spin off to a very weak rival, a lot of the Safeway, Albertsons stores, and that means less competition for prices, not only for food, but also for pharmacy products and medicine as well. We need that competition. This merger is a bad idea. And if we don't succeed, we can see an increase, not only the potential loss of stores over time, which has happened in other mergers, but also an increase in prices because there'll be this small, tiny competitor that's doing this kind of volume grocery for the very first time, and this very large competitor, even larger than it is now, Kroger, Fred Meyer. So say no to the merger and get the county board on board to make that statement as well as a group. And that is the most tangible thing we can do right now to keep prices down.
All right, Sam, thank you so much. Shannon, same question to you. When it comes to cost of living, how would you tackle that for Multnomah County District 2?
Thank you. So again, the driving factor in cost of living here is rent and or housing. So we have to address the housing issue if we really want to address the cost of living in Multnomah County. And I think we talked a little bit how to do that. So I will go on to say we have a number of unions in this community really fighting for fair wages, living wages, as well as healthcare. And I think we have to, as a county commission, take a look at what we're paying people and our contractors to ensure that they are also making a living wage job. We have a number of providers who are still being paid such little money that some of their staff can't afford rent here. And so as a county commission, we should be really living our values and ensuring that we're paying workers, whether that's janitorial workers or our social workers out there ending domestic violence and supporting survivors, or it's the folks who are working on the front lines of homelessness. They absolutely need to be making wages that allow them to live in this community.
All right, Shannon, thank you so much. And something that both of you have touched on throughout this, and obviously there's a theme here when it comes to financial support for a lot of things, but job growth and the economy in general is something that people are very concerned with. And to that extent, we've seen several businesses either leave Multnomah County entirely or severely cut back on their staffing, and that's been consistent over the last few years. There's some growth in there too, but obviously overall this is something that people are concerned with. So Shannon, we'll go to you to continue from your point right there. How would you support businesses not only coming to Multnomah County and starting here and growing here, but also just staying here and maintaining the staff levels that they have to encourage that job growth?
Thank you for that question. I think there's a couple of things that I would look at. One, I think we should be talking to our colleagues in Hillsborough and Washington County who have done some really good work to support their small businesses on the back end by having sometimes simply convening so they can network, but other times really supporting that back end of a business as startups are getting their feet under them. And we could build off of that success and replicate what we can here in Multnomah County. Additionally, we have actually seen an increase in small business startups in East Multnomah County. And so there's conditions that are rife for that in some spaces. And again, how do we learn from what is actually happening and pull that into our work in a more broad scale to support the whole county? And lastly, I'll say on this is where we've seen growth is often in the caregiving profession. So we've seen growth in the healthcare sector. How are we actually getting our young people, our young families into the pathway for those good paying jobs? How are we making that same connection to childcare? We continue to have a glut of childcare in the community. We have underspent preschool for all dollars, and yet we have people who would love to start a small business and open up that space, but face some barriers to do so, not just permitting, but again, back-end business that they need some support on. So there's some really concrete, tangible things that we could do as a Multnomah County Commission with some existing resources to get some businesses up and running and keep them supported.
Hi, Shannon, thanks so much. And Sam, same question to you. How would you go about supporting businesses coming here, growing here, starting here in Multnomah County, and also maintaining that without leaving to continue some of that job growth?
Yeah, another absolutely urgent issue. I mean, we lost a net $1 billion in taxation, and we saw an estimated 14,000 taxpayers leave the county in terms of where they where they registered their home. $1 billion, 14,000. This is another, if we don't have the resources from taxes, we're not going to be able to do the kinds of things that Shannon is talking about. And those things, many of those things are needed. So first is we need to get a handle on, and it needs to be very open and transparent. We need to get a handle on our competitive advantage or disadvantage to the businesses and jurisdictions around us. I mean, we're losing a lot quickly. We also need to know what our competitive strengths and weaknesses are to other cities that we compete with, not only in the region, but beyond. And we need to look at the return on investment. You know, if we're losing companies because we are not providing enough of return on their investment, then we need to tackle that. We need to look at it. We need to be clear-eyed. We need to be open. We need to be honest with ourselves where we need to make improvements so that we're not going to continue this drain of $1 billion. I've been around local government a long time. I have never heard of, never witnessed, never been around when we lost $1 billion net in taxes and saw 14,000 taxpayers leave. This is all hands on deck kind of. We've got to dig into it. We've got to come up with ways to stop the drain.
All right, well, Sam and Shannon, thank you both very much for having a few minutes to join us here today to talk about both of your standpoints on this and some of the concerns that you see. We didn't want to take up too much of your time, and that's why we wanted to do this here to hear from both of you. And I appreciate both of you for joining us, for letting us know your thoughts and your stance on those different issues. For everybody watching, feel free, you can drop in comments. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, this video will be up for people to watch and to watch afterward and share. Sam and Shannon, thank you very much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg.
And for everybody watching, we're going to sign off here as well. We will be having more of these throughout the week as we do all kinds of segments here for Fox 12 Now. You can follow along again at the Fox 12 Oregon YouTube channel, at kptv.com, or on the Fox 12 Oregon app. So all places to find the show when we're both live and afterward, and to share these segments afterward. But thank you for joining me. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.